As we have discussed in the previous video, we have totally finished up the forebrain part. So anyone who has not seen that forebrain, you can observe the previous two videos and then come back here, because without understanding those parts you can't understand the most important system. So today we are going to discuss a system which is not generally discussed in the normal levels of the study. This system is generally it is down seen. Nobody concentrates on this one. The reason, because this system is not very visible and not very easily understandable. Like our emotions, it is also complex. So today we will discuss a part of forebrain, I should say, which will actually castle up, which will actually becomes as the base for the emotions. So I should say we are going to discuss a system called as limbic system, which can be simply called as emotion controller system. I should say emotions castle. I can use that word also. Emotions castle or the memory creator. So we can use words like this because this is the complex one, but it is the one which mainly creates our memory, or which mainly starts putting up the anger or the fear or the anxiety or the emotions or the sexual arousal, the sexual urges, satisfaction, motivation. Everything is under control of this one. Now this limbic system is a part of forebrain, and it is not one part. It's actually a combination of different parts. It's actually a combination of many parts. So I'll just write the names first, which parts are involved here. Then we'll discuss the proper meanings and anatomy and the functions of these things, or the physiology of these things. So limbic system involves parts like the lobes. If you remember, we have the frontal lobe, we have the parietal lobe, and we have the temporal lobe, if you remember. So in some books people say that temporal is not involved, but some parts of it is involved, not actual lobes. The basal ganglions formed from these lobes. So the basal ganglion formed from this frontal, parietal and temporal lobes are important for this limbic system. So limbic system is comprising of this basal ganglion, which we've seen in the previous video. You can observe it there. That is important. It also involves the hypothalamus part, the involuntary visceral controller, we can say, the hypothalamus part. And we can also see the involvement of parts called as amygdala. It is a part of forebrain. We have that part around this thalamus part. We'll see it. So amygdala, and we have a part called as hippocampus. We have a part called as hippocampus, and we have some commissures. That means joiners, attacher. I mean the structure which will join up these parts. It will form a ring-like system or a lip-like system, lips-like system. Okay, so hippocampus, we have a commissure called as fornix. We'll see them in the diagram. So all these parts are important for the formation of this emotion controller system called as limbic system. Now first of all we have to know what is the etymology of this limbic word called as limbic, why it is called as limbic system. So the reason why it is called as limbic is this system will form a margin. So limbic actually is a Latin word. Limbic is a Latin word which means margins, or which means periphery. So this system will form a margin or a periphery around some parts of this forebrain. What are they? So to understand that part, we have to go back to the structure of forebrain. If you remember the structure of forebrain, in that the most important part, so I am showing a sagittal section view, remember. So this is a sagittal section view. Sagittal section view, we are cutting it in the middle of the brain through the corpus callosum. So you can see there is this corpus callosum, which is having the anterior genu part and the posterior splenium part. You know this. Now around this corpus callosum we will have that basal ganglion. So I'll just draw it just on the top so that it is easily understandable and it's clear to us, so that I'll have the proper understanding, or you will have the proper understanding. Okay, so there's a small problem. Yeah. So now, as I've said, we are cutting the total cerebrum or the forebrain, and we are zooming on the portion of the corpus callosum. So I am zooming it on the portion of the corpus callosum. So I have not on the cerebral cortex and the other parts. Now around this corpus callosum, we have a basal ganglion. From the cerebral cortex, the axons will come down and they'll form the basal ganglion. So this is a basal ganglion. We'll discuss that function also. We'll just put it there. This is basal ganglion. So I'll just write the parts. So this is basal ganglion, and this one is the corpus callosum. The black one is the corpus callosum. Okay. Now we discussed that below this we have the thalamismic part. If you remember, we have the thalamus, the big lobed portion called as thalamus. So we have the thalamus here. So I'm just drawing it bigger than the normal. So we have thalamus and we have the hypothalamus, which will be forming the pituitary gland. So it forms the infundibulum and it forms the hypophysis called as pituitary. So that's the part. That's okay. Now this is the hypothalamus, which is involved in this limbic system, the third part. So what we discussed, the third part is the hypothalamus. And if you remember, I said that this thalamus is the relay center, and thalamus is also involved in this limbic system. We have involvement of thalamus also. Now what's happening here? The main parts comes right now. So in this dorsal portion of this hypothalamus, or we can say on the back side of this hypothalamus, or we can say the posterior part of hypothalamus. This is anterior, this is posterior, we can say. So on the posterior part of hypothalamus, we can see an almond shaped swelling. So we can observe an almond shaped swelling called as amygdala. So we'll discuss the amygdala, the functions, don't worry. So on the back side of this hypothalamus, or to be exact, I should say the posterior side of this hypothalamus, or this diencephalon, or we can call it like that. So we have a part called as amygdala. This amygdala is joined by a seahorse shaped, around seahorse shaped, I should not say completely seahorse shaped, but around seahorse shaped structure called as hippocampus. Hippocampus. Now this hippocampus will continue as a small connection. We give two tracts, two nerve tracts, I should say two branches. One branch will continue here around the thalamus and comes down to the hypothalamus. So one tract will continue around this thalamus and comes down to the hypothalamus part. Now what do you call that commissure? What do you call that connection? That connection is called as fornix. The connection is called as fornix. And we have one more nerve fiber tract. Nerve fibers means axons. Here we can see one more branch coming out, and this one more branch connects to the basal ganglion. This one more branch will link to the basal ganglion, and from the basal ganglion this will again reach the hypothalamus. So you can see there is a formation of a lip-like system. You can see the upper lip and the lower lip. So this red color zone, I'll concentrate on the red color zone. You can see formation of a lower lip and the upper lip. Okay, so this amygdala is located on the internal portion of the lower lip. So this is lower lip, right? So this is upper lip and this is lower lip. So internal portion of the lower lip, or the internal fork I should say, because we have two ends, two forks, two ends. So internal portion of the lower lip, we have this amygdala. Now this is the part. What they will do is, they have the capacity to control some of the involuntary behaviors. And one more thing. So assume this, I think I will draw the cortex, just a rough version. So assume we have the cortex like this. So this is cerebral cortex. I'm just drawing a rough version. Cerebral cortex. And here you can see we have this olfactory bulbs. If you don't know what is olfactory bulbs, please go for the previous video or the previous before video. So these olfactory bulbs have olfactory tracts, right? Olfactory tracts will directly join to the amygdala. So the olfactory tracts will directly join the amygdala, which is present in around the temporal part. If you remember, we said in the previous video, the lobes video, we have the frontal, parietal, temporal. So this amygdala is present in the temporal region, to be exact. So that's why we have said that in the temporal region we have the olfaction capacity. So these olfactory bulbs and these olfactory tracts, the axons of the olfactory nerve, to be exact I should say. So these olfactory bulb who will receive the olfactory neurons from the nasal epithelium. So these signals will directly go to the amygdala. Now what is the function of this limbic system? As I have said, it is the emotion controller of the body. First we'll study the amygdala, because remaining things we'll discuss. First we'll study the amygdala. So as I have said, amygdala is a almond shaped, I should say. Almond means a somewhat round or around round structure, we can say oval also. So almond shaped structure present in the internal fork or internal side of the lower lip, or we can say lower fork. I can use a lower lip. Okay. So now the point is, this amygdala is considered as the defense castle of emotions. There is a name. This amygdala is considered as the defense castle of emotions, because once this amygdala lose control, or once this amygdala is activated, the emotions comes out. The anger, rage, violence, anxiety, all those things. So the emotions, the raw emotions, we can say, the raw emotions are under control of this amygdala. If this amygdala is working out, they can release or they can start the emotion, and they can also control the emotion. So it's a self-controllable system here. So when it becomes activated, it can start the anger. So I'll write here. Sorry. So it can start the anger. It can start the rage. Rage means violence. Okay, it can start the rage. It can start the anxiety. Okay, it can start all the emotions, all the raw emotions which you cannot control. Now the point is, even motivation also. If you are motivated, that means your amygdala is activated there. Motivation. For example, right now I'm talking to you. Maybe I may not be motivated you, but I may satisfy your urge for the knowledge, urge for the understanding of this brain and all those systems. So satisfaction. If you remember, I said this for the diencephalon, for the hypothalamus. Why? Because there is link between these two, the amygdala and the hypothalamus. So as we discussed, these emotions are also controlled by hypothalamus. They are interlinked with each other. So when the amygdala opens up, and amygdala releases these chemicals, when it excites, they will produce this anger, anxiety, rage and satisfaction. Anyway, the motivation also. So they will control it. Even if they start it, they will control it. But once it stops working, then you can't control the anger or rage. It crosses the limits. So amygdala is the one which is defense castle. The name itself says defense castle of emotions. That means it is having all the emotions, but those emotions are controlled. So you can have those emotions only for a particular amount of time. So if you are hitting someone, you will think that no, this is not good. He may get some problem. So some people are very pity to the others. They'll just think that we should not beat others. Some people they'll be very hard at others. They'll start beating. They'll not think of it. So who is doing all those things? This amygdala. Amygdala is an important point there. If you observe the alcoholics, if you see alcoholics at some point they don't know what they are doing. They do violence. They break things. They start pushing everyone. They start beating everyone. And the next day morning they'll ask you, "What happened? Did I do that?" So they'll say that. Is it or not? So what's happening there? The amygdala has lost its control in this alcoholics, and some people normally it is lost. So they'll start beating others. They'll start eating others. So because these emotions are not under control of this amygdala. So amygdala is just an emotion castle. So if you want to be satisfied, for example, you are listening to this lecture. If you are understanding it, you'll be satisfied. So your hypothalamus along this amygdala will be satisfied and says that okay, it's good, we are happy, we understand what happens. So your motivation, your satisfaction, everything is under control of this amygdala along with the coordination of the hypothalamus. But generally, this hypothalamus action is not discussed in all the books, in all the topics, but there is some contribution. So, but in the NEET exam, they'll discuss only under this amygdala. But normally, when they ask, they'll say that hunger, anger, sleep is under control of the hypothalamus or the diencephalon. That's what I said. So why they are given like that is because there is contribution of both things. There is contribution of amygdala. There is contribution of this hypothalamic region. Okay. Now what about this hippocampus? Hippocampus is the most important part, I should say. Hippocampus is the most important part which stores the memory. Hippocampus has the capacity to convert short-term memory into long-term memory. That means they can convert the memories which came here. If you remember yesterday we have discussed that in the temporal lobe there are some receiving signals. They receive signals from the ear which you are listening. Right now you are listening, you form the short-term memory first. When you understand it, the signals reaches the hippocampus, and hippocampus will start converting that short-term memory signals into long-term memory. See, everything depends on the chemicals. Everything depends upon how the neurons are activated in this region. So they'll start releasing that chemical, and the short-term memory becomes long-term memory. So you'll remember it. So this is a place where recollecting memory happens. So if when I say long-term memory, what do you mean by long-term memory? Long-term memory means recollecting memory. So if, for example, if I think what does the limbic system contains, if you are listening once, only once, you can't remember all these parts. If you see 2 times, 3 times, the nerves are continuously exposed there. The nerves are continuously exposed there. So what happens? That short-term memory will reach this hippocampus. The signals will try to activate this hippocampus and converts that short-term memory signals into long-term memory signals, right? So this particular hippocampus will convert the short-term memory into long-term memory, as we have said. Now, how the long-term memory is created? Long-term memory is created in some ways. One is called as recollecting memory. One is considered as recollecting memory. That means whatever the short-term memory you have stored, when you recollect it, when you try to think of the question again, you will get the answer. That is recollecting memory. Right now you have listened to this video, you have observed this video, you have seen this video. When you go back outside and you think of it, what does the limbic system contains? So your if temporal lobe works, that means you are still having short-term memory. It will be remembered for maybe 1 day or 1 hour or 2 minutes or 3 minutes. Now if you continuously recollect it, continuously trying to get the answer for it, what happens? That signals will activate this hippocampus region and they'll convert it to long-term memory. And once long-term memory is created, it's very hard to be forgotten. So you will have the memory till your lifetime, or maybe some long-term time, maybe for example 1 year or 2 years. So hippocampus is the one which will create the long-term memories. Okay, it will not make the memories, it will just convert the short-term memories into long-term memories. It will not create memories, it will convert the short-term memories into long-term memories. Okay, so one is called recollecting memory, another one is called as association memories. So what is association memory? Just think of it. You can see these olfactory bulbs going to this amygdala, and from amygdala we'll have this to the hippocampus region. If you see, for example, if you observe some smell of chicken, assume our mother is making some very good chicken. So she's making this very good chicken for us. Now assume when you get this smell, what happens? Your brain will say automatically, okay, she is putting some chicken up for us today. We are getting chicken, or for the veggies, some veg burger or something like that. Okay, so the point is, previously your brain could have got this smell, and that smell, the brain have associated that smell with the food item and stored it in the hippocampus region. Okay, so in the hippocampus region, what happened? There is formation of the long term memory, which is an association memory. So you are associating something with the thing you want to remember. So I'll just say that, for example, if I want to remember these things, I just remember with some shortcuts. We are very happy with the shortcuts, right? So we generally think of shortcuts. So if you think of this one shortcut, I have seen in some Khan Academy or something, in the some videos I have seen, for the limbic system they have used a shortcut called as hippo hat. So a hippocampus, I mean a hippopotamus, a big hippopotamus animal is having some hat. So hippo means hippocampus region, H means hypothalamus, A means amygdala, T means thalamus. So they got shortcuts there. So what happening there? There is some association created. So memory is created with some association. That is called as association memory. Now some people are very talented. They don't need any of this association memory. They directly will create the recollecting memory. Okay. So that is the work of hippocampus. And hippocampus is the main one which will create this so-called memories. They'll remember the motivation. They'll remember the satisfaction. Whatever the amygdala is showing up, they'll remember them. So they will think that, okay, this up to this level will be satisfied. For example, today if I make one video, I'll be satisfied. So my amygdala will start emoting me, and hippocampus will be satisfied only if I complete the video. If I don't complete the video, my hippocampus will stop. It will not say, okay, that's not satisfied. My hippocampus will start acting on me. So satisfaction things, everything is on amygdala, and that memory is created in hippocampus. Okay. So one small neat question here, you can think of it. Anyone can give me the answers in the comment section. I'll give the answer in the next video for this one. What happens if hippocampus is stopped, or what happens if hippocampus stops working? That's the question. If someone has the answer, please put it in the comment section. In the next video, I'll give you the answer for that. Okay. So anyway, now you can see that these signals from the hippocampus, they are going to the hypothalamus at some points. So that means hypothalamus is also involved in the maintenance of these things. Hippocampus is the main part, but hypothalamus, when hypothalamus is activated, what happens is the sexual arousals, the sexual activities, okay, the satisfactions, the motivations, everything is coordinated with hypothalamus. As I said, amygdala will coordinate with the hypothalamus through this fornix. So the satisfaction, the sexual arousals, all those things are under integrated control of this amygdala and the so-called hypothalamus. And you can see this one, when it goes to basal ganglions, the basal ganglions will relay that signals to the upper parts, to upper lobes. So upper lobes can take it. Okay. So think of this point. Those lobes have those nerves which are being sensitive, but those activities are under control of this limbic system. So limbic system is the one which will control your emotions. Limbic system is the one which will create the memories. Okay. So if you take hippocampus will create a new memory. It will create a long-term memory. Okay. So for example, if I say I have removed the hippocampus, or if I have stopped working it, or if I made it stop working, what happens? New memories are not stored. Remember this point, they are not stored. Okay, but memories will be created. You'll have short-term memories. So you can see something is happening in front of you, you can memorize it for some minutes or some hours, but you cannot store it. So storage is off. It is called as amnesia, retrograde amnesia, or amnesia we can say. So you can see them, you can observe them, you can put a short-term memory, but what happens is that short-term memory is not stored in your brain. That means again, if you get the same exposure, you will not remember it. But if you have this hippocampus, you will remember it, obviously. So so I'm sorry. So I got this retrograde amnesia right now. I asked the question to you and I am giving the answer now. So I got amnesia. So my short term was not converted into long term. My hippocampus stopped working there. Okay. So the issue is what hippocampus, if hippocampus is stopped working, very important question for NEET. If it stopped working, memories are not stored. New memories are not created, false. New memories are created in short-term memory. So you can get the new memories, but those memories are not stored in your hippocampus or in your body. You will not remember. It's a simple thing. You will not remember. That's it. Okay. So that's the hippocampus part. And remaining things, they are linked to the hypothalamus part, and hypothalamus will take care of other things. The breathing part, the emotions, or as I've said, integration with amygdala, and the emotions, or we can say the satisfaction, the motivation, the hunger, anger, sleep. If you see, when you are in sleep, you will be having the action of this hypothalamus, okay, along with the integration of this amygdala. So amygdala and hypothalamus are almost integrated, but those things are not generally discussed in books. In books, generally they say that hypothalamus is separate and this amygdala is separate, but they are integral parts. And one more thing, as I have said, the thalamus part is the relay center. So through this thalamus, we have the nerves going from the auditory nerves will pass through this. Okay, the next nerves, gustatory nerves will pass through this. We have this hot line, that is gustatory nerves. Gustatory nerves will pass through the thalamus. Then we have this tactile receptors or tactile nerves. I should say cutaneous nerves. Cutaneous nerves also pass through this thalamus. Optic nerves also pass through this thalamus. So while they are relayed through this thalamus, they are being received by the basal ganglion, and basal ganglion will give the signals to these things, amygdala, hippocampus. Okay, so this amygdala, hippocampus will act accordingly. They'll act accordingly. So whether we have to fight it, or we have to become anxious, we have to become comedy, or we have to become sad, sorrow, amygdala will decide, and hippocampus will decide whether we have to store it or not. Is it a good memory or a bad memory? Whether it's a good or bad, should we store it, or your body is okay with it? So this will convert it. If you continuously observe some memory, continuously observe some stimulus, you will store it. Like for example, this video, if you continuously observe it, you'll store these things. That's a simple thing. I'm just prolonging it. I'm sorry. So this is the limbic system, very important for the NEET, and generally not discussed system in special cases, because this is inside the cerebrum, and nobody wants to discuss all these parts, this amygdala and all those things. So try to remember, and in the next videos we'll discuss the remaining parts of the brain, the midbrain and the hindbrain and all those parts. Okay, that's it for today. Mohan Krishna signing off.